Welcome to Sincerely Bhakti, episode 23. Love is not a business exchange. Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, commentary by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, chapter 4, verse 28. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in transcendental knowledge. So in this verse, Krishna is expanding upon the different types of yajna. And this particular section of the Gita deals with yajna, and yajna is translated as sacrifice. This is further expanded upon in verse 25, so a few verses earlier, where Prabhupada writes, factually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, who is also known as yajna. So the goal of all yajna or sacrifice is to please the Lord, and that's also God's name, is sacrifice. So in this verse, different types of sacrifice are mentioned. And so we start off with dravya yajna, which is sacrificing one's possessions. And so Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport about all the different types of charity that are done, because this is purifying. And I was thinking, often sacrifice has a connotation of giving up something. Even though the original Greek means to make sacred, in this context, yajna really means to give up something. And so if you're giving up your possessions, there's a bit of a sting there, but it's purifying, actually, to let go of something I've worked so hard for, whether it's money or a place of residence, to give that up for others who are in need. So that's sacrificing one's possessions. And then there are, if you accept strict vows, that's also giving up something. Usually strict vows doesn't mean I'm going to make a strict vow to only eat ice cream for the next week. Usually strict vows means I'm giving up something that's hard to give up. Like I'm not going to have any sugar for the next week. Now that is a strict vow. So there are strict vows laid down in the Vedas and in the scriptures about what is recommended to give up, not just giving up sugar. So going by those those authorities of what to give up. And that is tapo yajna, right? So that is austerities, personal austerities and strict vows. Then there is yoga yajna, sacrifice and eightfold mysticism. And so this really means the Patanjali system. And there's 8 limbs of this system, yamas and niyamas, so discipline of external behavior, discipline of internal behavior. These are all disciplines that require a certain giving up of comfort. So the Patanjali system, there's a goal often, to either merge with the divine or to attain mystic powers. So again, there's a lot of austerity involved in this eightfold mysticism. And so Srila Prabhupada writes here, all these practices are called yoga yajna, sacrifice for a certain type of perfection in the material world. Elevation is commendable, to actually become better. Like, okay, I'm going to have greater discipline. I'm going to give in charity. I'm going to study the scriptures and actually kind of elevate my soul and my consciousness and my intelligence. These are worthy goals. It's just that, why do we even aspire to purify our hearts in this way? And so, I was thinking that we're purifying our hearts for this ultimate goal. And Prabhupada says clearly that this love and devotion is the goal of any kind of purification of the heart. So I was thinking, if I want to actually be worthy of love, I was thinking of this phrase, be the person who you're looking for is looking for. And so it's like kind of doing my best to be worthy of a loving relationship with God that's clean and pure and not codependent and tainted and contaminated with all of my own desires and complicated ideas and misguided beliefs. So that kind of purification is me doing my part to be sincere, to show God that I want to actually love him. But it's not the be all end all, though, to do all these sacrifices, and if I just do enough, then God will love me. If I can just prove myself worthy, then God will actually care for me and love me in return. And it just doesn't work like that. Love is not a business exchange. It's not like, okay, if I do these austerities, then you will give me such and such expressions of love in return. Love doesn't work like that. And so Prabhupada concludes his purport by saying that Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any one of the above-mentioned types of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. So doing all of this yajna is kind of a personal effort that I'm putting my energy in. But what Prabhupada is saying here, that only the mercy of the Lord, someone else, or the mercy of a bona fide representative of the Lord, again, someone else, can actually have that reciprocation of love. And that's the way love works. It can't be forced. It is totally voluntary. It is free will. If we have free will to love God, God has free will to love us too. Of course, his heart is always there, but that reciprocation, it can't be calculated. Even if it's God, we can't calculate a loving relationship, even with God. And so ultimately, Prabhupada says here, Krishna consciousness is transcendental, and transcendental means it's above any of these material efforts and endeavors. So we need these material efforts and endeavors to kind of purify our hearts, to show that sincerity, and at the same time, it is not dependent on those activities. And if we can actually directly serve God in the 9 processes of devotional service, that is actually a more direct way to connect to God and the goal of all of these sacrifices anyway. So if we have those 9 processes of devotion, that is also Krishna consciousness, and that helps us connect a little bit more clearly and precisely with the ultimate goal, yajna, or the name of God, which is sacrifice, or Krishna. So those are just my thoughts on how love is not a business exchange, and how love can't just be achieved by just doing lots of sacrifice. And it really means engaging in service and then being detached and seeing how God will reciprocate in his own way. All right, thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Hare Krishna.